Good evening, television fans. Big Al here on this Friday, July 4th, 2025. Happy 4th of July to one and all. And welcome to episode 5 of TV television history or TV station history. I know my own title. Sorry about that. Today we'll be looking at the de facto CW television network flagship WPIX, which began as one of the highest rated independent television stations in the country. Alright, before we begin, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. And here we go with the history of WPIX. WPIX Channel 11 is a television station in New York City serving as the de facto flagship of the CW television network. Owned by Mission Broadcasting, the station is operated by CW majority owner Nexstar Media Group under a local marketing agreement. Since its inception in 1948, WPIX's studios and offices have been located in the Daily News building on East 42nd Street, also known as 11 WPIX Plaza in Midtown Manhattan, and their transmitter is located on the Empire State Building. Alright, WPIX New York is an ATSC 3.0 station, broadcasting on virtual and RF digital channel 11. Their on-air brand is PIX 11. Affiliated with the CW, and we'll tell you about the sub-channels towards the end. The station is presently owned by Mission Broadcasting Incorporated, but is operated by Nexstar Media Group, which is the parent company of the CW, via a local marketing agreement. WPIX was founded in April of 1947 and hit the air on June 15, 1948. And they used WLTV during the station's construction permit from 47 to 48, but officially signed on as WPIX. The station previously aired on VHF analog channel 11 from 1948 to 2009, and their digital signal had aired originally on RF channel 33 from 1999 to 2002, and again from 2004 to 2009. In between, from 2002 to 2004, their digital signal was seen on VHF channel 12. There is a translator in the Bronx, W73AP, channel 73. Channel 11 began as an independent station until signing with the... Let me try that again, sorry about that. The station began as an independent from 1948 to 1995, and then they would become the New York affiliate of the WB from 1995 up until that network ended in 2006, and since then it has been linked with the CW. Call sign meaning is New York's Picture or PIX newspaper, which is after the nameplate slogan of the New York Daily News, its founding owner. WPIX is licensed by the FCC. They broadcast at 26,000 watts effective radiated power from their 1,329-foot transmitter at the Empire State Building, and their website is www.pix11.com. WPIX is also available as a regional superstation via cable and satellite in the United States and Canada. It is the largest Nexstar-owned television station by population of market size. Alright, jumping into the history as an independent station from 1948 to 1995. The station first signed on the air on June 15, 1948. It was the fifth television station to sign on in New York City and was the market's second independent station. It was also the second of three stations to launch in the New York market during 1948, debuting 1 month after Newark, New Jersey-based independent WATV, Channel 13, which is now PBS member WNET, and 2 months before WJZ-TV, Channel 7, now ABC flagship WABC-TV. WPIX's call letters come from New York's Pictured Newspaper, or PIX, the nameplate slogan of the New York Daily News, the station's founding owner. The Daily News' partial corporate parent was the Chicago-based Tribune Company, publishers of the Chicago Tribune. Until becoming owned outright by Tribune in 1991, WPIX operated separately from the company's other television and radio outlets, including Tribune flagship WGN-TV in Chicago, which signed on 2 months before WPIX in April of 1948, through the news-owned license holder WPIX Incorporated, which in 1963 purchased New York radio station WBFM 101.9 FM, and soon changed that station's call letters to WPIX FM. British businessman Robert Maxwell bought the Daily News in 1991. Tribune retained WPIX and 101.9 at the time known as WQCD. The radio station would be sold to Emmis Communications in 1997, and it is now Odyssey-owned sports station WFAN-FM. WPIX initially featured programming that was standard among independents: children's programming, movies, syndicated reruns of network programs, public affairs programming, religious programs, and sports, specifically the New York Yankees, whose baseball games WPIX carried from 1951 to 1998. To generations of New York children, Channel 11 was also the home of memorable personalities. In 1955, original WPIX staffer and weather forecaster Joe Bolton donned the policeman's uniform and became Officer Joe, hosting several programs based around the Little Rascals, the Three Stooges, and later Popeye shorts. Another early WPIX personality, Jack McCarthy, also hosted Popeye and Dick Tracy cartoons as Captain Jack in the early 1960s, though he was also the longtime host of Channel 11's St. Patrick's Day Parade coverage from 1949 to 1992. WPIX aired a local version of Bozo the Clown with Bill Britton in the role from 1959 to 1964. Comic performers Chuck McCann and Alan Swift also hosted programs on WPIX during the mid-60s, before each moved to other entertainment work in Hollywood. Jazz singer Joya Sherrill hosted a weekday children's show, Time for Joya, later known as Joya's Fun School. Channel 11 also produced the Magic Garden series, which ran on the station from 1972 to 1984. Beginning in the late 70s and continuing through spring of 1982, the station aired WPIX, that's PIXX, a television video game show played during commercial breaks of afternoon programs. Kids would call into the station for the chance to control a video game via telephone in hopes of winning prizes. That had to have been fun. Another staple of WPIX's programming was its selection of movies, unlike many independent stations. WPIX's library went beyond the usual offerings from major studios and low-budget B-movies to movies produced by Samuel Goldwyn and imports from Britain. The station also became famous to many area viewers for their various holiday broadcasts of films that became traditions at the station, such as the broadcast of the 1934 movie March of the Wooden Soldiers on Thanksgiving Day. This reputation for film programming for much of the station's history, a movie ran at 8 p.m. every night in prime time, and movies also make up much of the schedule on weekends, became so ingrained that the station frequently promoted itself as being New York's movie station during the late 80s and 90s. Another notable program stunt was Shocktober, where for the entire month of October, various horror and thriller films were played. This occurred for several years in the early 90s and became a cult favorite among area viewers. From its early years through the 1960s, WPIX, like the other two major independents in New York, WOR-TV Channel 9, now WWOR, and WNEW-TV Channel 5, now WNYW, struggled to acquire other programming. In 1966, WPIX debuted the Yule Log, which combines Christmas music with a film loop of logs burning inside a fireplace. Airing on Christmas Eve and or Christmas morning initially until 1989, the film was made in 1966 and was shot at Gracie Mansion, with the cooperation of then-Mayor John V. Lindsay. WPIX revived the Yule Log due to viewer demand in 2001 and has proven to be just as popular. Several of Tribune's other television stations, as well as WGN America and Antenna TV, have carried the WPIX version, complete with its audio soundtrack on Christmas morning since the late 2000s, and is also streamed online on WPIX's website, pix11.com. Since 1977, Channel 11 has aired a live broadcast of Midnight Mass from St. Patrick's Cathedral every Christmas Eve. The station's Circle 11 logo predated the existence of the World Trade Center, which was not completed until 1973, which it closely resembled. Was first unveiled in 1969 as an advertising billboard for WPIX, with the Circle 11 logo began appearing that year at Yankee Stadium. By the mid-70s, WPIX emerged as the second highest rated independent station in New York, behind Channel 5. WPIX dropped the Circle 11 when it rebranded as 11 Alive in September 1976, though it continued to appear during station editorials until around 1982. The Alive slogan was popularized by such stations such as Atlanta's WXIA-TV, which has branded itself as 11 Alive ever since that point, with the exception of a brief removal in 1995. The Circle 11 logo returned as part of the 11 Alive brand in 1984, before being restored full-time in the fall of 1986. Its relaunch featured a series of humorous promos in which a fictional station employee, Henry Tillman, was searching for a big idea for something uniquely New York in nature to serve as the perfect WPIX symbol. The running gag in these ads was the fact that Tillman was constantly surrounded by, but never noticed, objects resembling a giant 11, most notably the Twin Towers of the old World Trade Center. In 1978, WPIX was uplinked to satellite and became a superstation that was distributed to cable providers throughout the U.S. Many providers carried WPIX's signal until the early 90s, when most systems outside of the northeastern U.S. began replacing WPIX with the superstation feed of WGN-TV, though the station continues to be distributed through Dish Network domestically, which since it halted sales of the package to new subscribers in September 2013, is now available only to grandfathered subscribers of its a la carte superstation tier and on most cable and satellite providers throughout Canada. 2 years later, WPIX began operating on a 24-hour programming schedule. During the late 1980s, WPIX fell to 6th place in the ratings among New York's VHF stations, behind WNYW, today now owned by Fox, and a resurgent WWOR, then owned by MCA Universal. After President Levitt Pope stepped down as GM, though he remained as president and CEO of WPIX, Michael Eigner was transferred from LA superstation or sister station KTLA to become WPIX's general manager in August 1989. Okay, we got Joey and Anna in the chat. Hello, guys, and happy 4th. Over the next few years, the station engineered a slow turnaround that eventually resulted in WPIX becoming the leading independent station in the market. In 1994, the station became the exclusive home of the New York City Marathon, carrying the event for the next 5 years. It was during the initial broadcast of the event that WPIX unveiled a stylized serifed 11 logo. The new numerical look eventually became the full-time logo, augmented with the WB's logo after the station affiliated with said network in 1995. In mid-January 1994, the station began airing the action-packed programming block with the TV movie Tech War. WPIX earned the biggest ratings of all the stations airing the program, with 11.7 million viewers and a 17 rating. WB affiliation 1995 to 2006. On November 2nd, 1993, the Warner Brothers television division of Time Warner and the Tribune Company announced the formation of the WB television network. Due to the company's ownership interest in the network, initially a 12.5% stake before expanding to 22%, Tribune signed the majority of its independent stations to serve as the WB's charter affiliates, resulting in WPIX becoming a network affiliate for the first time upon its January 11, 1995 debut. The station was verbally branded as the WB Channel 11, which meant simply adding the WB name to the Channel 11 brand in use since 1986, until it was simplified to the WB11 in 1997, and further to WB11 in 2000. Initially, WPIX's programming remained unchanged, as the WB app broadcast only primetime shows on Wednesday nights at its launch. As with other WB-affiliated stations during the network's first 4 years, WPIX ran feature films and select first-run scripted series prior to its 10 p.m. newscast on nights when the WB did not offer network programming. WB Network and syndicated daytime programs such as Maury and Jerry Springer became more prominent on Channel 11's schedule starting in 1996 at the expense of most of its local interest programming outside of news. By September 1999, when the WB completed its primetime expansion and the network began running its programming Sunday through Friday nights, movies were limited to Saturday evenings and weekend afternoons. Sorry about that. On September 11, 2001, the transmitter facilities of WPIX and several other New York City area television and radio stations were destroyed when two hijacked airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center. Both of the complex's main towers collapsed due to fires caused by the impact. WPIX lead engineer Stephen A. Jacobson was among those who were killed in the terrorist attack. WPIX's satellite feed froze on the last video frame received from the World Trade Center mast. A replay of the North Tower burning and the start of the impact of the South Tower. The image remained on screen for much of the day until WPIX was able to set up alternate transmission facilities. That would be the microwave relay for WPIX satellite feed, which was also located at the World Trade Center. And WPIX also broadcast in the interim on W64AA. Since then, WPIX has transmitted its signal from the Empire State Building. The station's coverage of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack was notable in that WPIX's helicopter was the last to land and following an FAA directive that grounded all aircraft. WPIX was given special permission to continue airing aerial video from its helicopter after the collapse of the World Trade Center, though that permission wasn't conditioned on WPIX distributing the footage as a pool camera. Footage from WPIX's helicopter was one of many videos used by the NIST in its investigation into the collapse of the World Trade Center complex. CW affiliation, 2006 to the present. On January 24, 2006, the Warner Brothers Entertainment unit of Time Warner and CBS Corporation announced that the two companies would shut down the WB and UPN and combine the two networks' respective programming to create a new fifth network called the CW. As part of the announcement, Tribune signed 10-year affiliation agreements with the network for 16 of its 19 WB-affiliated stations, including WPIX. Tribune chose not to exercise an ownership interest in the CW. At the time, WPIX was the largest CW affiliate that was not owned by either CBS Corporation or Time Warner, and the largest English language network affiliated station that was not an owned and operated station of its respective network. WPIX began transitioning its on-air brand to CW11 during the summer of 2006, prior to the start of the station's 10 p.m. news on September 17th of that year, which aired following the WB's final night of programming and the night prior to the CW's official launch. Shortly after airing the WB's final sign-off bumper featuring stars from the WB's shows, the station aired a video montage of past WPIX logos, starting with a 1948 test pattern and concluding with the official unveiling of the new CW11 logo. On April 2nd, 2007, investor Sam Zell announced plans to purchase the Tribune Company with intentions to take the publicly traded firm private. The deal was completed on December 20th. Prior to the station's closure, WPIX had been the only commercial television station in New York City to have never been involved in an ownership transaction. Tribune subsequently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2008 due to debt incurred from Zell's leveraged buyout and costs from the company's privatization. It emerged from bankruptcy in December 2012 under the control of its senior debt holders, Oaktree Capital Management, Angelo Gordon and Company, and J.P. Morgan Chase. The station began gradually adapting the modernized Circle 11 logo in mid-October 2008, featuring a slimmer version of the WB era 11. The CW logo is sometimes used next to the Circle 11, primarily in station promos for CW programs. The station branding was then changed to PIX 11 on December 1st, 2008. The PIX or PIX in the call letters are pronounced phonetically, similar to the word PIX. On August 17, 2012, Cablevision removed the station from its New York area systems, part of a carriage dispute with Tribune in which WPIX's Hartford, Philadelphia, and Denver sister stations were removed from Cablevision's systems in those markets. Cablevision accused Tribune of demanding high carriage fees, claiming to total in the tens of millions of dollars for use to help pay off debt, and alleged that it illegally bundled carriage agreements for WPIX and Hartford's WTIC TV, which was later pulled as well, but unlike co-owned WCCT, was initially unaffected due to a separate carriage agreement. The company denied the claims, stating its approach complied with FCC regulations. The stations and WGN America were restored in an agreement reached on October 26th, following a plea by Connecticut State Senator Gail Schlossberg for the FCC to intervene in the dispute. Crazy Cajuns in the building. Happy 4th, my brother. On May 23, 2016, WPIX owner Tribune Broadcasting and the CW reached a 5-year affiliation agreement that renewed the network's affiliations with 12 of Tribune's CW-affiliated stations, including WPIX, through the 2020-2021 television season. The deal came after a year-long disagreement between the CW's managing partner, CBS Corporation, and Tribune concerning financial terms. Specifically, the amount of reverse compensation that the CW had sought from the group's CW affiliates. Sinclair acquisition attempt and subsequent transactions. Sinclair Broadcast Group announced plans to acquire Tribune Media for $3.9 billion on May 8, 2017, plus the assumption of $2.7 billion in Tribune debt. To meet regulatory approval, WPIX was one of several stations identified by Sinclair for divestitures to a third party. Sinclair partner licensee Cunningham Broadcasting was later revealed as the buyer for WPIX TV with a below-market value $15 million purchase price. Several weeks after the divestment was announced, Sinclair withdrew the resale with intentions to retain WPIX outright. The attempted sale of WPIX, along with Tribune stations in Dallas and Houston, to Cunningham and in particular a planned sale of WGN-TV to an LLC controlled by a friend of Sinclair Executive Chairman David D. Smith, resulted in FCC Chairman Ajit Pai publicly rejecting the merger. Despite Sinclair abandoning the divestments, the FCC vowed to send the merger up for an evidentiary review. Tribune Media moved to terminate the merger outright on August 9th, 2018, and filed a breach of contract lawsuit in the process. Following the Sinclair deal's collapse, Nexstar Media Group agreed to acquire Tribune Media's assets on December 3rd, 2018 for $6.4 billion in cash and debt. WPIX TV was then sold by Nexstar to the EW Scripps Company for $75 million as part of a series of divestitures totaling $1.32 billion. Both transactions were completed on September 19, 2019. Under the terms of the deal, Nexstar was granted an option by Scripps to repurchase WPIX between March 30th, 2020 and December 31st, 2021. Nexstar partner licensee Mission Broadcasting exercised said option to buy WPIX on July 13, 2020. Nexstar had previously transferred to Mission said repurchase option for $75 million plus accrued interest. This coincided with Scripps' eventual merger with Ion Media, owner of WPXN TV. The sale to Mission Broadcasting was approved by the FCC on December 1st and completed on December 30th. On May 20th, 2021, Nexstar announced that they renewed affiliations for the CW in 37 media markets, including WPIX. On March 21st, 2024, the FCC ruled Mission's ownership of WPIX to be an illegal circumvention of its ownership limits due to Nexstar treating the station like its own, and ordered Nexstar to either sell it to an independent third party or sell off some of its older stations to buy WPIX outright. The decision came as local marketing agreements and similar licensing deals came under increased scrutiny by the FCC. Nexstar stated it intends to dispute the ruling, claiming that it has always complied with FCC regulations. Okay, moving on to programming, starting with the news operation. As most stations did in the late 1940s and early 1950s, WPIX aired filmed coverage of news events. The station's first news program, WPIX Newsreel, was the first in New York City to consist entirely of filmed coverage. From 1948 to 1965, WPIX produced 3 Star News, a 6:30 p.m. newscast which employed a 3-anchor format, with Kevin Kennedy reading world and national news, John Tillman reporting local stories, and Joe Bolton as the weatherman. Bolton was later assigned to host children's programming and was replaced by Gloria Ocon. The program was canceled after an FCC complaint that some of Tillman's man-on-the-street interviews were staged with paid actors, most notably of which was a pro-Castro sympathizer who was quote-unquote interviewed with a copy of the Daily Worker newspaper conveniently tucked under his arm. WPIX produced the Independent Network News, a national newscast that was syndicated to independent stations from June 1980 to June 1990. The program, whose live feed was transmitted nationally weeknights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, featured the same on-air staff as Channel 11's newscast and was broadcast from the same news studio, with INN logos covering the station's own logo on various set pieces. In New York City, WPIX paired a 10 p.m. replay of the national news with a live local newscast at 10:30 called the Action News Metropolitan Report. As part of a midday expansion of INN starting in 1981, Channel 11 also launched a newscast at 12:30. Sorry about that. During the decade, WPIX also produced two other programs syndicated to stations that carried the INN program: the business-oriented Wall Street Journal Report, and From the Editor's Desk, a Sunday morning discussion program hosted by Richard D. Hefner, host of the long-running public affairs program The Open Mind. WPIX was also noted for the many post-news editorials that were delivered by Richard N. Hughes, Vice President of News Operations from 1969 to 1995. His editorials ended with the tagline, "What's your opinion? We'd like to know." Periodically, he would read excerpts from viewers' letters in response to the editorials, invariably closing each excerpt by saying, "And that ends that quote." In 1984, the station renamed its local and syndicated news programs as the Independent News. In 1986, the national INN newscast was renamed USA Tonight and aired at 10 p.m., while the 7:30 program retained the international news title, and the 10:30 p.m. local newscast was renamed New York Tonight. When INN was canceled, the 7:30 p.m. program ended as well, and WPIX focused its efforts on the 10 p.m. newscast. Over the years, Channel 11 has won many news awards and was the first independent station to win a New York Area Emmy Award for Outstanding Newscast, first ending the statuette in 1979 and again in 1983. It was a significant comeback for a news operation that was accused of falsifying news reports in the late 60s, such as labeling stock footage as being shown via satellite, and claiming a voice report was live from Prague, when it actually had been made from a paid telephone in Manhattan. As a result, Forum Communications, led by future PBS and NBC News president Lawrence K. Grossman, approached the Federal Communications Commission to challenge WPIX Incorporated license to operate Channel 11. WPIX and the Daily News prevailed in 1979 after years of litigation. Concurrent with the challenge to its license, WPIX began airing 9 public service programs in mid-1969, including Puerto Rican New Yorker, Black Pride, Suburban Close-Up, Focus New Jersey, Every Woman, Rendezvous, Jewish Dimension, Sesame Street, and The Green Thumb. On June 5, 2000, WPIX launched the weekday morning newscast, the WB11 Morning News, known today as the PIX 11 Morning News, which has grown to challenge the established network morning programs as well as its more direct competitor, Channel 5's Good Day New York. On April 26, 2008, WPIX became the 4th TV station in New York to begin broadcasting its local news in high definition. The station resumed a half-hour early evening newscast on September 14, 2009 that ran nightly at 6:30 until it was replaced by syndicated reruns on June 27, 2010. 3 months later, on September 11th, the station launched a weekend evening 6 p.m. newscast, making WPIX one of the few U.S. television stations to carry an early evening newscast on weekends without an existing weekday news program in that day part. On September 20th, 2010, WPIX extended its weekday morning newscast to 5 hours with the addition of an hour at 4 a.m. On October 11, 2010, newly appointed news director Bill Carey instituted controversial format changes for the newscast in an attempt to boost the station's ratings. Carey made the newscast flashier than they had previously been. Katie Tong and Jim Watkins were replaced as anchors of the weeknight 10 p.m. broadcast by Jody Applegate, and multiple commentators and an edgy graphics and music package were introduced. The revamped newscast first week was not well received by most viewers or critics, with the station fielding numerous complaints through phone calls, emails, and Facebook comments, as well as a scathing review in the New York Daily News. A Facebook page was created calling for Tong and Watkins to return to the 10 p.m. news. WPIX's sports department was shut down in March 2011, with sports segments being reduced to a 2-minute feature presented by the station's news anchors. In September 2011, WPIX relieved Watkins of his duties as weekend anchor, replacing him with Tong, who now solo anchors the news at 5 and 10 on Saturday and Sundays. By late 2011, the station's newscast ratings would fall to last place. Carey, who stepped down on October 3, 2012, was replaced as news director by Mark Efron in April 2013. On September 12, 2011, WPIX restored an early evening newscast to its weeknight schedule with the debut of an hour-long 5 p.m. broadcast, which was originally aimed at women between the ages of 18 and 49. On December 19, 2012, Jody Applegate left WPIX to prepare for the birth of her child through a gestational surrogate. Hopefully I said that right. Morning anchor Tamsin Fadal was later named her replacement. The station later restored a 2-anchor format with the hiring of WNBC sports anchor Scott Stanford as Fadal's co-anchor on the 5 and 10 p.m. news in September 2013. In March 2014, WPIX hired consumer reporter Arnold Diaz, who was fired by WNYW 2 months earlier due to the shutdown of its consumer investigative unit, to head up a new 4-person investigative unit. On April 5, 2014, WPIX would move the weekend early newscast 1 hour early from 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. On April 23, 2014, the station debuted a new graphics package during its 5 p.m. news. The opening sequences used in this package had previously debuted in January 2014, but were updated with the revamp. Along with the change, the station brought back Non-Stop Music's WPIX Custom News package, which had been previously used as the theme for WPIX's evening newscast from 1993 until the 2010 format change. On June 9th, the station reduced the morning newscast to 4 hours, with the 4 a.m. hour replaced with syndicated programs, to allow the station the flexibility to invest more resources into key morning hours. On July 14, 2014, John Mueller, who joined WPIX in 1999 and served as anchor of the morning newscast from its launch until he left for ABC News in 2011, would return to the station as evening co-anchor. Scott Stanford was reassigned to lead sports anchor as part of a gradual reformation of the sports department that included the launch of the highlight program PIX 11 Sports Desk. During the July 2014 ratings period and again during the August 2014 ratings period, WPIX beat channels 5 and 4, earning third place in ratings only behind Channel 7 and Channel 2 in the 5 p.m. time slot among adults 25 to 54, as well as in certain other demographics for the first time since 2011. It was the only newscast in the market to make year-to-year gains in key demographics. WPIX's newscast also saw increases in the morning and at 10 p.m. in the 25 to 54 demographic. On April 20th, 2015, WPIX debuted a 6 p.m. newscast on weekdays with current evening anchors John Mueller and Tamsin Fadal. On December 8th, 2015, WPIX announced the hiring of former WWOR anchor Brenda Blackman and the addition of a new 6:30 program to rival the network news on the other main stations. Kaidi Tong and Blackman began anchoring the broadcast on January 11, 2016, and then the 6:30 newscast would be canceled in September of that year. On April 13, 2016, WPIX made an announcement of more anchor changes preceding May sweeps. This includes Scott Stanford moving from evening sports anchor to morning news anchor with Sukana Krishnan. Corey Chambers, formerly on the morning show and weekend evenings, will co-anchor with Tamsin Fadal on the weekday 5 p.m. version and handle political coverage for the station. Andy Adler, who handled weekend sports duties, will become the primary sports anchor. In addition, Kala Rama and Craig Treadway, who anchored on the weekends, will now anchor the first portion of the morning news from 5 to 6 a.m. In May 2017, WPIX once again revamped its anchor lineup. The station announced former CBS Morning News and Early Today anchor Becky Nguyen would become part of the morning news team along with a returning Dan Manarino, with Scott Stanford once again returned to anchoring sports for the evening broadcasts. In addition, WPIX announced that it would begin featuring traffic reports from WCBS Radio's Tom Kaminsky, who reports from the radio station's helicopter as he does every weekday. When he flies his television reports, the helicopter is referred to as Air 11. Until the show's cancellation in spring 2022, WPIX's news studio was the home base for the daily syndicated entertainment news series Daily Mail TV from CBS Media Ventures, which WPIX carried locally. This was done to avert a costly remodeling of the Daily Mail New York Bureau for Television Operations. WPIX only contributed technical staff to the series, and Daily Mail TV was taped using removable logos which overlaid WPIX's logos on the set during dark time for the studio. In breaking news situations during Daily Mail TV tapings, WPIX originated coverage from the station's newsroom instead. In January 2020, WPIX extended its morning newscast to include the 9 a.m. hour. And then on September 14th of that year, they would add an hour-long newscast at 10 a.m., becoming New York's only 10 a.m. newscast. And now PIX 11 Morning News runs weekday mornings from 4 to 10 a.m. Sports programming. Since 1999, the station has been the over-the-air broadcast partner of the New York Mets. Prior to 1999, the Mets have spent their entire televised career since 1962 with WWOR. WPIX since 2013 has also simulcast some ESPN Monday Night Football telecasts involving the Giants or Jets by arrangement with WABC TV, the main local rights holder for over-the-air simulcasts. WPIX also carried NFL Network's Thursday Night Football telecast involving the Giants or Jets, mostly prior to the NFL's decision to simulcast most Thursday night games on either CBS, NBC, or Fox. WPIX served as the longtime over-the-air television broadcaster of New York Yankees baseball from 1951 to 1998. Mel Allen served as the primary announcer for the broadcast. Then you had Red Barber from 1954 to 1966, Phil Rizzuto from 1957 to 1996, and Bobby Mercer from 1997 to 1998. With his "Holy Cow" catchphrase, Rizzuto became popular especially through the 70s. WPIX would lose the broadcast rights for the Yankees to WNYW in 1998, more so the result of regional cable sports networks, in this case MSG, gaining team broadcast rights, leaving broadcast stations with fewer games to air. In 2015, the Yankees returned to WPIX after a 17-year absence, having picked up Yes Network's package of over-the-air Yankees broadcasts, replacing Channel 9. These games coexisted with WPIX's existing Mets broadcasts produced by Sportsnet New York, or SNY. In 2022, these games left WPIX for Amazon Prime Video. At various points, Channel 11 also aired Major League Baseball's New York Giants, of course before moving west, the New York Football Giants, the New York Jets, and professional wrestling from 1984 to 1991 with various companies such as Pro Wrestling USA, AWA All-Star Wrestling, UWF, NWA/WCW Worldwide and Pro, Glow, and briefly WWF, now WWE, from late 1998 to early 1999. The NHL's New York Rangers, the MISL's New York Arrows, and local college basketball. However, it was through the coverage of Yankees baseball that Channel 11 gained perhaps its greatest fame and identity. In March 2017, it was announced that WPIX would air several or selected New York Cosmos soccer games beginning in the 2017 season. And in 2021, WPIX also broadcast 2 Brooklyn Nets playoff games. The Nets' usual network, Yes Network, was televising the Yankees game instead. Alright. Notable current on-air staff. These are some of the personalities you'll see on Channel 11. They include Ben Aaron, anchor and host of New York Living. Ernie Anastos, who is the host of Positively America. Marisol Castro, anchor and co-host of New York Living. Chris Cimino, meteorologist and New York Living host. Anchor Candace Gibson, formerly of ABC News. Irv Githkovsky, a.k.a. Mr. G. He's a weatherman. Allison Caden, general assignment reporter. Byron Miranda, meteorologist. John Mueller, weekend morning anchor, fill-in and substitute weekday and weekend anchor. Joe Nicolini, fill-in traffic and entertainment anchor. Heidi Tong, weekend anchor. And Craig Treadway, weekend morning anchor and reporter. As for notable former on-air staff at Channel 11, this includes meteorologist Craig Allen, AMS seal of approval from 2010 to 2020, Jody Applegate, 2010 to 2012, Brenda Blackman, Remy Blumenfield, Joe Bolton, Sharon Carpenter, who was with the station briefly in 2010 and 11, Jack Cafferty, 1992 to 1998, Jason Carroll, Julie Chang, Linda Church, 1990 to 2017, Morton Dean from 1985 to 1987. Sorry again. Vince Dimitri, Lori Dew, Arnold Diaz, investigative reporter, Tom Ellis, host of Newsworthy, Amberlene Edinger, Thompson Fadal, 2008 to 2023, Emily Francis, 2001 to 2010, Sean Gables, Jerry Garrard, 1974 to 1995, Donna Hanover, 1983 to 1990, Pat Harper, 1975 to 1985, Kathy Hobbs, 1997 to 2009, Richard N. Hughes, Jackie Hyman on 2 occasions, first from 2002 to 2005 and the second run from 2007 to 2011, Bill Jorgensen, 1979 to 1987, Martin Kipman, 1973 and 74, Sukana Chrisman, 2 different occasions, 2001 to 2003, and 2005 to 2017. Sherry Lewis. Then there's Lionel, 2009 to 2015. Linda Lopez. Patricia Lopez. Jeffrey Lyons, who was with the station from 1970 to 1991. Sal Marciano, 1995 to 2008. Chuck McCann, Jack McCarthy. Miles Miller, 2015 to 2017. Caitlin Monty, 2014 to 2016. Felonious Monk, 2011 to 2012. Melinda Murphy, 2000 to 2002. Shimon Propekis, 2004 to 2009. Sally Jesse Raphael. Francis Rivera, 2011 to 2013. Bobby Rivers, 1986 to 1987. Tim Ryan, Bonnie Schneider. Tony Senecal, 2001 to 2005. Eric Shawn. Joya Sherrill, 1970 to 1982. Scott Stanford, 2013 to 2019. David Suskin, Alan Swift, Peter Thorne, 2001 to 2011, and Jim Watkins from 1998 to 2011. Public Affairs and Special Events. WPIX specialized in public affairs and special event programming. Inspired by its roots under the ownership of the Daily News, early on it offered the first in-depth program to look at New York City government, City Hall. WPIX children's show personality Jack McCarthy anchored the station's coverage of the annual St. Patrick's Day parade, and the station later added the Columbus Day and National Puerto Rican Day parade to its stable of events. Later on, the station produced Essence, a series inspired by Essence magazine and hosted by the magazine's chief editor Susan L. Taylor. The station also broadcast the Macy's 4th of July fireworks event beginning in 1983. Along with the New York City Marathon, these events moved to Channel 4 after the station joined the WB. That's Channel 11 joining the WB. Since 2000, the Macy's fireworks event has been carried nationally on NBC, while Channel 7 locally and ESPN2 nationally outside of New York City broadcast the NYC Marathon. Special guest Kobe Krantz was invited onto the Daily News segment on his 11th birthday because he was one of the only people to turn 11 on November 11th, 2011. That's 11/11/11. Editor's Desk host Richard D. Hefner served as the host of The Open Mind, which was produced by WPIX and was concurrently aired on PBS member stations, before moving to other New York studios. Since 1992, WPIX has produced PIX News Close-Up, hosted by WPIX senior correspondent Marvin Scott since its debut. It is a half-an-hour public affairs and interview program on Sunday mornings that focuses on domestic and international issues in the news and discussions on political issues. Technical information subchannels. The station's ATSC 1.0 channels are carried on the multiplex signals of other New York City television stations. Alright, channel 11.1 at 720p HD resolution, 16:9 aspect ratio is PIX 11, which airs the CW. It is hosted on ATSC 1.0 by WABC. And then channels 11.2 and 11.4, both broadcasting in 480i HD and a 16:9 aspect ratio, are respectively Antenna TV and Rewind TV, both hosted on ATSC 1.0 by Univision flagship WPIX TV. And both channels are broadcast with MPEG-4 video. Analog to digital conversion. WPIX ended regular programming on its analog signal over VHF channel 11 at 12:30 p.m. on June 12, 2009 as part of the federally mandated transition from analog to digital broadcasts. The station's digital signal relocated from its pre-transition UHF channel 33 to VHF channel 11. WCBS TV took over the channel 33 allocation as it moved its digital signal from channel 56 as a result of the phase out of channels 52 to 69. On January 1st, 2011, Tribune launched its new digital broadcast network, Antenna TV, which affiliated with WPIX through a new fourth digital subchannel. In May 2012, WPIX moved Antenna TV to digital subchannel 11.2, while digital subchannel 11.4 was removed. Spanish language network Estrella TV, which was carried on 11.2 at the time, is now affiliated with Port Jarvis low power station WASA-LD, which is owned by the network's parent company Estrella Media. 11.4 would return to the air in 2018 as an affiliate of TBD, known today as Roar. On September 1st, 2021, 11.4 switched to Nexstar-owned classic network Rewind TV. And on October 28th, 2019, Court TV launched on 11.3, replacing This TV. And then on April 1st of 2023, Grit would move to 11.3. ATSC 3.0 Lighthouse Service. These are the subchannels of WPIX in ATSC 3.0. You've got WABC TV on 7.1, WPIX and the CW on 11.1, Antenna TV on 11.2, Rewind TV on 11.4, and Univision owned and operated and East Coast flagship WXTV channel 41.1, all broadcasting in 1080p high definition. And that's a look at the history of WPIX. We're going to wrap up our first week tomorrow with a look at WWOR TV. So make sure you join me tomorrow for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. This has been episode 5 of TV Station History. Thanks for watching, and I hope you can join us tomorrow. And happy 4th of July, everyone. Peace out.